Hello, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you to my panelists here for joining me. We have such a range of expertise. These are great people here, folks. We're going to hear a lot about the broad themes of this conference from people who really have hands-on experience building companies, building art exhibitions, launching groundbreaking products and services. So we're just going to go down the row here and let everybody kind of explain what brought you here. What skills, what experience do you have that made you come to this conference? And because my pronunciation of Arabic is not very good, I'm going to let each panelist introduce themselves so I do not butcher their names. And we're going to start here with
Aya. So thank you, Cynthia.
No problem.
First of all, thank you, everyone. And I'd like to thank the Ministry of Culture and the Events and Festivals team for having us here today. It's such an important conference to be convening about today. So my name is Aya Al-Bakri. I'm the CEO of the Der'iyya Binaly Foundation. As a foundation, we oversee and put together the Dar'iyya Contemporary Art Biennial in Jax district in Dar'iyya, and the Islamic Arts Biennale at the Western Hajj Terminal in Jeddah at the King Abdulaziz Western Hajj Terminal Airport, and we oversee the Jax district in Dar'iyya.
That's quite a bit, and we're getting those visual cues queued up as soon as I get the word. We're not quite ready
Okay,
yet.
I hope
All right,
so.
let's go. Next to Aya is?
Dominik Alba. I'm French. I'm the CEO of Atelier Jean Nouvel. Thank you for inviting me. And Atelier Jean Nouvel is a very big French company working all over the world. Perhaps you know about the Louvre Abu Dhabi, or the Doha National Museum, or the Institute of the Arabic World in Paris. And if Jean Nouvel could be here, perhaps he could say that architecture is the first life culture experienced by people and places, and architecture provide answers by offering sensation and emotions. And to be attractive, because it's the purpose of this panel, you have to cultivate your difference, to think from your culture, and we're facing a world that clones everything. So we have a big, big problem linked to that.
All right, next two.
Thank you very much. Thank you, first of all, for the Ministry of Culture and the events team for bringing the CIC conference, the first edition of the CIC conference. I'm Al-Aziz, السليم, co-founders and the Chief Executive Officer of the Cultural Assets Group, which is an integrated ecosystem of cultural and creative companies and subsidiaries. We work mainly in the creative and cultural industries to cover the value chain of the creative and cultural development in Saudis, but also in the region as of today. Glad to be here today in this session.
Quite a portfolio. I looked it up before we sat down.
Much.
All right, and last but definitely not least.
Thank you, Cynthia. I'm Omar Nagati. First, thank you for having me in this wonderful event. I'm an architect by training and urbanist, but I'm also co-founder of Cluster, which is a small but quite busy independent urban design and research initiative. We're based in Cairo. We've been in practice over the 15 years. And what I think brought me to the conference, two things. We relate to culture and art from two different vantage points. One is we're interested in mapping and documenting heritage, tangible, intangible heritage, producing maps, cultural itineraries, platforms, archives, etc. But we also work with art and artists as catalysts for urban regeneration. I'm going to talk about some of our projects, how art and culture could help revitalize and diversify public space in cities that are undergoing very rapid transformation, including Riyadh and Cairo and many others. Thank you.
Art as an economic engine. It has been a theme of the day, and it's been fascinating to pursue it in its many permutations. Aya, you have incredible experience here in Saudi Arabia with the incredible DBF foundation that you lead and the activities, the creation of the Jax district. There's so much to talk about there, but in the big picture, can you talk about let's start with the Jax Creative District, because in my reading, I understand that was very significant, very significant. Can you talk about what was the catalyst for doing that, and what, if any, obstacles that you had to overcome to be able to create what is now, as I understand, a very thriving district?
Thank you, Cynthia. So I think it's really important to mention how creating these communities is such an integral part of what we do. Jax used to be a district that was there from the 70s. It used to be old warehouses and storage spaces for retail. And now we're so blessed to have inherited such an important site to become a creative district that has been born from the artists, by the artists, and grown naturally as a community. So Jax has the Der'iyya Biyennale, the contemporary Biyennale, as one of its main tenants. And it's slowly grown into different multidisciplinary, so we have tenants like Snapchat, Middle Beast. We try to host events as well that to do with fashion, music, film. There is a beautiful film commission building that we have now at Jax as well. So it's part of the experience. And the artist studios are a huge and integral part of what we do. But I want to kind of just also touch on the adaptive reuse component that as a foundation is a core strategy of ours.
And that sustainability is a big
exactly.
So component.
It's what we do for in Jax and at the Western Hajj Terminal in Jeddah. So the Western Hajj Terminal used to be a terminal dedicated only to the pilgrims. It's growing up in Jeddah, I used to see it from afar and say, oh my God, this is such a beautiful building, built by Skidmore, Owens and Merle and Fazlur Rahman Khan. And I used to say, wow, what is in that building? And then we're so blessed to be able to open up that building to become a place that brings everybody together, that showcases works from around the world that have never been seen before in Islamic art. So I think just to circle back, adaptive reuse is something that's a kind of a big driver that we work with.
Oh, it's such an important pillar, and it's definitely been a discussion. Let me ask you, Abdulaziz, when you knowing the Jax district and hearing Aya talk about the importance of that adaptive reuse, is that something as an entrepreneur that you are thinking of, oh, I have a company that could work with that material. I have a company that could scale this art project, this service, this, is that in the discussion of the ecosystem and the creative, the cultural ecosystem, is that something where you're seeing that bleed into, that gets into the more commercial properties that you work with?
I think what you're referring to is the cultural infrastructure for the cultural ecosystem in general. I think, yes, there's a great opportunities today for groups like us and other entities in the private sectors to look into the cultural infrastructure from a development perspective. I think we've seen so far within the MOC initiatives and other initiatives related to cultural development, a very good portfolios of cultural infrastructure that have been reused in terms of the development itself. I think what we have to do from a private sector perspective today to look on these opportunities more of to opportunities for the extra miles that's the cultural industry looking in for, and that's where the opportunities coming in between the governmental side and the private sector that we're looking for.
Interesting. Now, Omar, putting on your urban planner hat, what strategies have you seen that have been effective that your group have done or you've seen others do to help from a planning and civic infrastructure process help facilitate an arts district, facilitate an exhibition that can then tour the world, tour the region? Is that kind of the work that you do in the urban planning side of your business?
Yes, in a way. I would maybe emphasize the word civic, which I think this is at the core of what we do, because I think in our work maybe we position ourselves between state-led approach and private sector approach. So we try to maybe offer an alternative way of looking at our cities, promoting civic engagement and emphasizing the role of communities and the participatory role in regenerating our neighborhoods and districts. We intentionally keep our scale of intervention small so that we can maintain a direct relation with the community. We avoid work on a master plan level, for example. I'm not against it, but I think in our work, it worked well. So instead of trying to develop policy papers, we develop pilots. So we build a small project in a public space and let it sit, let it live, and let it change over time. And then from that pilot, we could be repeated, and we program it, working with artists and performers and community. We develop a sustainable plan with the community, so it's being maintained by the local community. And it's important to mention that in the case of Cairo, this is in the context of absence of city councils. So there is no institutional mode of participatory planning. So people usually don't have much to say about what happened in the streets. It's all top down. So what can we do instead to promote this civic responsibility? So we work with an approach called stakeholders. So before we do any design, we ask the different representatives, the residents, the owner, the developers, the street vendors, the women rights groups, environmental heritage protection groups, what would you like to see in the streets and what are your concerns? And then through this matrix of interest, we try to develop something that would become a common ground. So we're trying to develop a reconciliatory approach between the different actors in the neighborhood.
Can you give an example of a region or a district where that you've had impact?
Well, I don't know about impact, but we worked a lot in downtown Cairo, where we were based for 10 years, and we developed a project called Downtown Passageways, ممرات وسط البلد, where we mapped out all the in-between spaces, and we identified a network, a framework that could also be used for art and culture, and festivals, and greenways, and bikeways, as opposed to the streets, so pedestrians. And to validate this hypothesis, we developed a pilot project. We implemented an urban park in one of the, called Mamar Kodak Passage. It's quite now important piece of downtown, and people love it, and it's very diverse, it's free, it's green, and it's used by art. So it's, I think, a good example of how can you demonstrate your idea or a concept through a specific small-scale project.
That must be very fulfilling to see it being vibrant. Dominique, you mentioned, obviously, you started, as you say, architecture is some of the first public art that we see as human beings and helps us know a place and set a place. Can you talk, I know you're working on a very big project here in this region right now. Can you talk about balancing heritage and cultural roots with being, you know, I mean, I've seen incredible buildings here in Riyadh that, you know, are very modern, but still reflect that, you know, you still reflect that, the traditional feeling. How do you balance those? Very difficultly, I'm guessing.
No, it's thank you for the question. It's, and I would like to just go on what you were saying about, it's a nice thing to push heritage, but what we have to do also is to give rise to projects that open heritage. What is the future, the new heritage? What are we going to do? And do you think that international architecture is that? In our company, Jean Nouvel doesn't think that, so he doesn't work like that. And instead of speaking with the people, as you say, we speak with the old partners and trying to push the boundary conventions, because combining each other ideas and connivance creates a situation where you're able to open to architecture that leads to heritage. And two examples, you know the Louvre Abu Dhabi. The Louvre Abu Dhabi is, because you asked me about ecology, and ecology is the ethic of today, and of the modernity, of the progress, it's the guide, and the Louvre Abu Dhabi is open on the water, and there is no climatization in the big public space. And that means that people can go there, feel the architecture, feel the pleasure, and just they're not obliged to visit and to look at sort of official culture. They just can feel some emotions like they have in their old town or they're close to their house, etc. So this is very important to find this link. And the project we are working on now, that is a big responsibility for us as architects, is Sharan Resort. Sharan is in Alula, and Jean Nouvel was invited in a competition 4 years ago to create what the thematic was a Camp David. So it was Summit Center and Resort of a very unique, something unique. And here in Kaisa, it's always unique in Saudi.
Camp David is a famous in the United States.
Yes.
It's outside Washington, D.C. It's a retreat where presidents go to get away from the craziness of Washington, D.C.
And so the location of the site was in the desert, in the rock desert, some sand, but many rocks. And Jean decided to put all the programs inside the rock, to excavate the rock, to find a way to excavate the rock and to take advantage of the inertia of the rock to solve the problem of heat. And he won. And now we are happy to say that the realization is now starting and we're going to deliver for 2030. And it was very difficult to find a way to do that because, you know, in the world of architecture, engineers, they like to do it always the same. All the builders, everything, all the rules, all the policies, everybody wants to do things different, but as usual. So that's a big problem for culture, because the problem for culture is just not to do as usual.
Right. Give me something new, but nothing
Yes.
that I'm confused by.
And so it was a big fight, and French people are always doing not as usual.
Yes.
So for us, but English people are usually like much more policy than French people. So it's a small fight. And now in Charan, where I think we'll be able to show a mock-up in the beginning of 2026. And it's a big responsibility because everybody, if you look on the images you can find on all the websites, there is already a big communication on this project. So it's already in the culture. It's
Expectations are
taking
high.
value. It's already adding value. And some people from Alula told me that, you know, in 3 centuries, everything will have disappeared in Alula except Charan and the old town of Alula. So this is something that helps you to think that you're in the good direction, but it gives this, what is this target we have to face in our different roles as making a new heritage.
Aya, let me ask you also about balancing heritage and the new, and let me ask you about doing that in art and the exhibitions that you curate, and also I'd like to ask you about that, and also what's been the impact of having touring exhibitions of Islamic art? Have you felt, you and the artists felt a tangible impact?
So, I mean, I feel like impact is in everything that we do. So in terms of the exhibitions that we do in either the Dar'iyya Contemporary Biennial or the Islamic Arts Biennale, and I would love to see if I can have some of the images.
I am sorry to say,
okay.
they do not have them back
Okay.
there, so we apologize. A little bit
I would
of
have
a
loved to.
miscue
I would
there.
have loved to share the experience.
You
with
will have to
everybody.
paint
Those
with
have-
words.
Those have not been able to visit, but. In short, I think for the Islamic Arts Biennale, the interesting part is because it's one of its kind, it has this interaction and this conversation between historical objects and contemporary works. And within that context, we also have been working with really talented and artists, whether it be artists or architects. So whether it be the Saudi architecture firm Scene Architects or the exhibition design and the scenography by a well-renowned firm OMA under Rem Koolhaas. So it's kind of in the experience and everything that we do. And then in the exhibitions, we obviously work with bringing historical objects that have never been seen before, such as the Kiswa ever leaving Mecca for the first time in our latest edition, which is the fabric that covers the Kaaba on all four sides.
That must have been, you must have had to have conversations, you must have had to make people comfortable, it will come back, it will not be damaged, like that alone must have been a process.
I have to say, we're so blessed that culture is a priority in the kingdom today, and with everything, you know, with all the support that we have from His Highness the Minister of Culture and His Excellency the Vice Minister Hamid Faiz and His Excellency Assistant Minister Rakan Al-Tog and the rest of the board, we've been able to do so much and showcase such important works and bring them kind of and make them open and available for everybody to see, Muslims and non-Muslims at the Islamic Arts Biennale, which becomes gives everything a whole other meaning in what we do.
Especially now,
yeah.
it's so important when there's so much conflict between cultures, that anything that can you know, share the beauty, share the experience, the heartfelt.
But I have to say that there's been such amazing audience and there's been so much demand and such amazing audience interaction with the works and with the exhibitions that for the first year, we had received 600,000 visitors in our first iteration of the Islamic Arts Biennale, which makes us one of the highest visited exhibitions in biennales in the world. So I'm really proud to say that it was a beautiful and pleasant surprise for us.
That I was going to say that was beyond your expectations.
Yeah, I mean, for us, and we were asked to actually postpone or keep the exhibition on for another month, and you can only imagine the operational challenges that we had to face to make that happen, but we were able to. And obviously for the next iterations, we're going to make sure that the exhibition is long enough to be able to receive all our guests from all over the world, our local audiences as well, have our public programming, do education for us, and learning and programming is equally important to the exhibition itself. So it's part of the experience. And we want to be able to always have our partners that we work with, whether it be Saudi and getting all our guests to Saudi, whether it be the Saudi البنك السعودي الفرنسي that have been with us from day one, and Lexus. So it's become a part of the process, and I'm sure it's going to keep growing, hopefully.
Gotcha. Abdulaziz, let me ask you, again, under the holding company of Cultural Assets Group, you have everything from museum design, cultural events, community engagement, visual production, retail businesses. Let me ask you kind of the same question. How much does heritage and the roots of Saudi, the pillars of the Saudi culture and families and the elements that go into the different disciplines, how much heritage and tradition versus new and shiny and things that are, things that will really attract, especially Saudi is such a young country. Youth always want something new. How do you balance that with your entrepreneurs?
I think the heritage itself is the foundation for the group establishment. That was from day one.
Cultural assets, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's the foundation of what we are in today. But I think you mentioned a very important things about the retail, for example. So I think that the balance between the heritage and the new way of what we're seeing today, I think the merging between the heritage and the new, it's becoming a mandate now because of the audience, because of the people that we are, the country that we're living in, because all of the new ambitions that we've seen what Binaly have done over the versions that they have produced is an amazing preserving of a heritage to us and showing it to the world. And I think what we're trying to do is balancing the relationship, balancing the equal between the heritage itself and the new way of doing things. And I think from a museum design perspective too is how we seeing the new technologies within the museums itself between a collections or an immersive experiences or other elements that today we're trying to implement to obviously the event side of the experiences and how the experiences could be a core in terms of it's either a cultural site that you want to build an experiences on and how you keep the foundation of the heritage itself to make people attracted to this visits and attracted to this cultural site itself and make it feasible to them and how they interact with the actual preservations or the actual sites itself in terms of the way.
And as a private entity, you also have to watch the financials, you have to watch the bottom line. And do you ever find conflict between commercial pressures and things that you would really like to do for the culture, for infrastructure, but commercial pressures make it hard?
I think no, to be honest. I think there are always an edge of I would say a premium that's the financial aspect is added on to. But I think being today in Saudis and this time of this, I would say development in the cultural, giving us an edge today is to go beyond the financial. And obviously financial is a core, but again, there are a belief in what we do in terms of what's happening today in the country. And I think the financial is always being, I would say, a positive and plus, rather than being a negative and downing side the project itself or the opportunity itself. So it's always helping to go. And as much as you go further and extra miles, you will be benefiting from it either financially, obviously, or obviously the social return that we always looking for in terms of the double bottom line, as they say.
This feels like such a moment of acceleration for the country, and it's exciting even just to witness. Now, Omar, let me ask you about your experience in Cairo and see in other markets doing projects that blend civic and private businesses. How do you think, are there examples that you gave a great example, but are there other examples where you have seen maybe it didn't work so well and you learned from the mistakes of other areas, other organizations that tried to bring that private-public partnership together?
Yes, I think there are many lessons that we learned over the years. I think we are on the recipient side of the funding. So because we are a not-for-profit organization, so most of our projects are based on applying for fund from donors or European partners or international partners. But that we always have to balance between the interest groups. For example, we have a project now in a public park in Cairo where we're building a stage, a theater that will bring art for free to the public. Of course, there's issue of permits and authorities. So there is the municipal authority that you have to get their approval. Mm-hmm. They're not necessarily happy sometimes with what we're doing, but we have to convince them. You have to sell your idea. What is it for them to support this project? And then you have to balance between the interest of the funder and the interest of the multiple community members. So you have always these kind of different groups and stakes, and our role is sometimes designer, we put the designer hat, but sometimes we put a facilitator or negotiator. How can we make sure that climate change agenda for the funder, when it comes on the ground, it's about the everyday experience? Maybe people are not aware of CO emission or green effect, etc., but they are, maybe there's something in their daily lives we can address that would improve their quality of life, in the same time addressing the funder's priority, which is SDGs, etc. So this is always the balance that we try to draw between the different groups.
It's a lot. It's a lot to balance. Let me conclude here in our last couple of minutes. In my research, obviously, Saudi is a very young company. The Saudi Vision 2030 is an incredible intention of transformation. Very impressed. Tourism is growing in Saudi Arabia significantly, both within the country and from people coming from far away, like Los Angeles. How has that for Aya and Abdulaziz? How do you think that the influx of people coming to visit from outside of Saudi and then greater cultural awareness within Saudi, how do you think that's going to impact long-term culture?
So I think investing in culture stimulates cultural tourism, and I think the most sustainable and high-value form of tourism. Vision 2030 set a target, and I think we've exceeded that target since 2023 of 100 million visitors. So I feel like culture plays a very big and integral role to that. Obviously, doing these exhibitions, building these communities, and I'm sure I want to just reiterate on what Omar was saying about these building communities and the challenges that come with that. You have so many stakeholders, you have so many people that you want to work with, you have so many people that you want to make sure that this space grows naturally. But again, just to answer the question, I feel like culture is the best way and the best form and driver for tourism.
Mm-hmm. Abdulaziz, how is that influencing your companies?
Yeah, no, I think tourism offering today in the country is massive. We've seen multiple resorts and other activities, but I think cultural tourism is becoming more and more into the countries. But again, as I mentioned today, regarding the communities, we've seen now multiple initiatives within the region of Saudi Arabia in general. From a museum to cultural sites, we've seen the Jeddah activities, we've seen also Qasim activities, Hail, and other areas of the countries that really relate to what we as a culture should be doing. And I've seen what all of the MOC from an infrastructure perspective do today to emphasize on the cultural tourism. I think is very important because that's the audience at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Well, this is a panel of builders. Thank you so much. This has been really enjoyable. We're going to, again, thank you for your contributions and your insights. We are going to bring out our next panel. Thank you so much for being game for my questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Cynthia.
All right, we'll see you later at the conference. Okay, thank you, everybody. Don't go anywhere. Okay.